X-Men, welcome to die! What? I am Magneto, Master of Magnet! What, problem?
Welcome everybody to our vlog for X-Men Days of Future Past.
I am Drak.
And I'm Shadow.
And, wow. Okay, we just barely got out of the theater, and I know we're a day late, but this is just the way it worked out. Hey, at least we're not, weeks late like we were on Muppets, okay? You know, Godzilla came out fairly early on. So, first of all, let's preface this the way we usually do. And at some point, I think we'll just put up a disclaimer saying this. Spoiler alert, to the max. We're going to be discussing everything that happened in this film. If you are a devoted X-Men fan, if you are a devoted Marvel fan, if you are just curious about how time travel and wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey works in this movie, then pause this and go see it. I promise, YouTube will make us wait. But that's just because the pause button's on. So let's go ahead and get into it. To do a synopsis of this film is really hard to do because of the, and I think this is a Doctor Who reference, the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. Basically, to preface this, it is based off of a very popular X-Men comic storyline called Days of Future Past. It's really showcasing a really apocalyptic future for mankind. And so they start there. They try to show that the way that things look is that both humanity and mutant kind are enslaved. They are, or not enslaved, but incarcerated. They have if people remember if you watch the X-Men animated series, you'll see these collars on their head, or on their necks. And those are supposed to be like the Genosha. The Genosian collars that restrict mutant powers, as well as I noticed that they were put on humans as well, so that was kind of interesting. And we then find out we find out who their masters are, which are the infamous, for people who are very popular or know X-Men lore, they are the very popular Sentinels. Just to give kind of a quick overview, Sentinels are humanity's answer to mutants at one point. They are robots that are designed specifically to apprehend and, if necessary, kill mutants. And, you know, like all things machinery, they eventually go Skynet on everybody. And this is no different. We then cut to basically the mutant resistance of this time period and how they are trying to fight the war, but also just stay alive. They then meet up with very familiar characters. If you guys have been following this all the year long, the Blackbird shows up, and then we get to see Halle Berry, Patrick Stewart, and Ian McKellen, Magneto, as well as Hugh Jackman and others. I think we even get to see the Bobby Drake from the X-Men movies. He comes and they discuss that the problem is they can't win this war where it's at in its stage. They need to send somebody back in the past to change events so that this future is overwritten. And they decide to, now where the comic actually made Kitty Pryde, the X-Men known as Shadowcat, she just goes back in time herself because apparently her phasing ability, it's comics, guys, it's confusing. She goes back in time in the comic, but in this movie they decided, well, we haven't had enough Hugh Jackman in this film yet, so he gets sent back in time to go talk to the now Matthew Vaughn X-Men. Michael Fassbender, I think, is Magneto, and then James McAvoy is Professor Xavier. If I got that wrong, I apologize. I'll comment and correct it. But his job is simply to convince them that they need to override the horrible past that occurs to prevent the future of these horrible, omnipotent almost Sentinels, which are way more powerful than anybody can take on. And the way that they do this is they have to stop the then Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence, That's that's the one returning X-Men that didn't come back, or from those movies, which was Rebecca Romijn Stamos as Mystique. They have to stop Mystique from killing Dr. Bolivar Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, of all people, and wow, he did a good job. Bolivar Trask is the guy who creates the Sentinels. And so, by the way that this timeline justifies it is by him dying at Mystique's hands, Mystique is then captured, and her blood and brain tissue and basically all of her being is used to enhance the Sentinels to the point where they have God mode turned on in their cheat codes. So the way that they have Wolverine go back in the past, and they have this kind of weird cycle where we go between the time periods. So it's back into I want to say the 70s.
1973.
1973, because JFK, or it's just into the Richard Nixon presidency. And then we also have the futuristic year of 2013!
Well, that's the comic.
That's the comic, but in this one it's like 2099 or whatever. Oh wow, 2099 continuity. Never thought I'd see that one coming. So at that point, we have them meet up, and we have just kind of a mixture of mutants at this point. On the Future's end, we have Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. We have mutants such as Blink, Sunspot, Colossus makes a return from his really bad performance in X-Men 2. And I think X-Men 3, I think he was in that one too. And then we have a lot of the mutants that we knew in the First Class movie, they kind of justified as dead. They've all passed on. A few haven't. They got drafted into the Vietnam War, and we get to see them, specifically Havoc. He makes a return appearance. And also we get to see Beast. And I can't remember who plays the younger Beast. And they try to counteract this future, but they don't, at the same time, they don't know how to do so, if that makes sense. Because if they do prevent Mystique from killing Bolivar Trask, but then it sets a whole other chain of events to basically create the same crucial decision. Where Mystique could then kill Trask and then get captured and create the same Sentinel problem. This is why I'm saying wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It's really complicated. And in a lot of cases, I'm just going to say, watch the movie. It's hard to explain how they're justifying this and how the timelines are working at that point. But the cool part is that you obviously have Magneto or a past Magneto and a past Charles Xavier trying to prevent the exact same event, but obviously doing it in their own way, in their own interpretation, and it ends up pretty freaking epic. We also have some very heartwarming moments where a young Charles Xavier doesn't know if he can shelter his destiny, and then through Wolverine gets to talk to his older self and gets consoled and shown that he can be the mutant the man that he is for a lot of X-Men fans. And it's a very heartfelt moment. We also do get to see, and just for spoiler, I'm not going to try and explain everything else. It's way too hard to do. After a climactic moment, the continuity that they know of as the Days of Future Past era has been erased. It has been remade into this new continuity, one that only Wolverine will remember, because he's the one that went back in time and changed it all. And then they also give this kind of heartfelt moment where Wolverine gets to see all the X-Men, up until this point in the Days of Future Past era, that he has seen pass on. He gets to see Bobby Drake, he gets to see Aurora Monroe or Halle Berry. They also even brought back Famke Janssen and James Marsden as Scott Summers and Jean Grey. And we get some really heartfelt moments, as well as kind of more definition towards Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart's relationship as Wolverine and Professor X. And we'll also spoil this a little bit. If you didn't know, there is a Easter egg at the end which does hint at the mutant apocalypse. And we already know from the news that the sequel to this movie is X-Men Apocalypse. We've already seen some news, specifically like Channing Tatum is Gambit in it. So we know that's coming, and they do the Easter egg to kind of hint at that, and it's pretty. It's nothing huge, but it's pretty awesome to watch. I'm sorry if the synopsis seems really disjointed and all that, but guys,
It's a time
travel story, and it's really hard to explain it. So we're going to leave it there. I've already explained some kind of prominent moments in the film. Pros and cons, starting with the pros. Alex, what did you think of this film?
I really like this film. I think this is one of the better X-Men films in quite a while. X-Men Origins had problems. I never saw the Wolverine. I didn't want to. I didn't see...
The Wolverine was Please Forgive Me for X-Men The Last Stand,
Yeah.
X-Men fans.
I didn't see... What was it now? I just slipped my mind. I'd have the time.
Well, let's actually go into the past a little bit, because you're kind of going over the films. Let's actually go into them, because
right.
this plays a lot into it. So the first X-Men you saw.
Yes.
I saw 2. X-Men 2.
Saw it.
X-Men 3.
Saw it.
Okay, X-Men Origins.
Saw it.
Wolverine you didn't.
No.
And then and First Class.
First Class. I didn't see that, but now I'm actually going to go back and watch it.
Oh, I recommend it.
Yeah.
So, okay, continue on with the pros.
So, I think this movie was really good. It was really just very different from the other films, and for many good reasons. And there's a dog barking. It's distracting me.
I apologize, guys. It's a neighbor dog.
There was so much to like about the film. I love good time travel stories. I really do. Any kind of time travel.
And that's saying something, because time travel is really hard to do.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, I know. But anytime you can pull off a good time travel story, I love it. They did it here. The actors, everyone was really well cast. Young Charles, young
Well,
Eric.
these are the thing you don't know, since you didn't see First Class. This is returning cast of both the original X-Men movies and First Class.
Yes.
So that's kind of the biggest thing here.
And of course, we all know our we all know our Patrick Stewarts and Ian McKellens and of course.
Well, and also let's showcase some of the newer mutants, like the emphasis on the new. This has been the disputed mutant, because Marvel has an answer to him as well, which is Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. So he's one of the new mutants that gets shown off. I already kind of showed off or said a couple of the mutants from the Days of Future Past era. There weren't too many in the past era. There was like Ink and a few others, but Toad was another. Mm-hmm. That's always kind of. But I do think that in the case of Pietro was actually really funny, in how they did his character.
So it was Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique, really.
What?
It was Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique.
Yes. For those who did not know, Jennifer Lawrence, who is known for the Hunger Games films, I actually forgot. She is. I think it is First Class. She was Mystique, or Raven Darkholme, in First Class and in this film, and so that's why I'm saying it's kind of interesting that Rebecca Romijn Stamos didn't come back to play her role. But yes, it was Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique.
Yeah, she did a fine job, though I kept confusing her for Emma Stone for some reason. Must have been the blonde hair.
Blue makeup. Actually, in a lot of cases, she looked like a much... Like, if you've seen the Hunger Games movie, she looks like, whenever Katniss does when she's all gussied up for the parties. Okay.
Pretty decent effects. Really great soundtrack here. And overall, solid cast. And really intense story, and I just enjoyed it all overall.
Okay.
It's really one of the better films in a while for X-Men.
All right. Okay, we'll do the pros. This is one of those times where I have to be kind of a dick in these, because I am a comics fan, and I also have my own opinions, and sometimes they may not be what people like to hear, but I'm going to point this out before I go into the pros. I have seen all of the X-Men movies up until this point. I have also stated very clearly, I think, in the Let's Plays, as well as in my own radio program, my distaste for Bryan Singer, and the fact that I did not like the fact that director Bryan Singer was coming back to do Days of Future Past, mainly because I actually think it was him that destroyed the X-Men franchise up until that point. And thank you, Matthew Vaughn, for coming in and doing First Class and making it all relevant again.
You want to explain this a little more? About why you don't like Bryan Singer?
Why I don't like Bryan Singer? Mm-hmm. Very simple, because all I have to do is say 2 movies, or, well, one he wasn't even part of. All I have to say is X-Men 3: The Last Stand is all the reason that I need to say, because of the whole debacle that came out of that, from him leaving that movie and going to go do Superman Returns, taking James Marsden with him, and, unfortunately a lot of that, at least to my knowledge, the way that script was written was Bryan Singer before he left, and nothing really was fixed, and nobody really looked at the continuity problems that would come from it. And now Bryan Singer is basically coming back after Superman Returns fails, and failed horribly. And first of all, we get the Wolverine, where it's just basically, oh, please forgive us for X-Men 3, we promise we'll make a good movie. And then Days of Future Past, which is just basically trying to do and I'm going to say it, it's a ginormous retcon, is what it is. Because at this point, it basically takes all the movies up until this point, and they don't exist. First Class exists, okay? First Class, nothing really else exists, at least as far as the timeline is concerned. And I can't help but wonder if Bryan Singer did that, because I do know that he's received a lot of critique on Last Stand, even though he wasn't really part of it.
I think Brett Ratner gets more hate for Last Stand than
Singer does too. Singer does too, because a lot of the crap in there was first Singer before it was Brett Ratner. Especially in the concept of, one of the things they advertised Last Stand so much on was so many mutants, so many possible powers to go out there, and we were going to get a full-on war. And one of the biggest complaints I had with it was, A, you had all these mutants and you didn't show off their powers. B, instead of showing off their powers, they're freaking punching each other. And here's the thing. I don't care what Brett Ratner says, and I don't care what Bryan Singer says. You could have done the CG budget for that. You had Magneto literally lift a bridge in CG. You couldn't pay to have Iceman and Pyro actually go at it, like, with their powers. You couldn't have done that? Because it seems to me like you could have. You just decided against it. Plus the whole problem with the Phoenix storyline, and having to have Wolverine kill her, and having her kill Professor X, which is... There's so much wrong with that film, and yeah, Bryan Singer's part of that. So I can't help but look at these films and say, Bryan Singer wants to be forgiven for crap he's done in the past, and the way he wants to be forgiven is, oh look, it didn't exist.
Well, that's what comics do anyway. Everything gets retconned in comics.
Yes, but... I agree with you, okay? Because that does happen. But at the same time, the thing happened regardless. It's still in the comic viewer, or the comic reader's mind, okay? So, like, for example, one of the biggest things I brought up in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 review was One More Day. If Joe Quesada redacted that now, it doesn't matter. One More Day is still in the minds of everybody involved. Okay? So it doesn't really matter at that point. Bryan Singer still did The Last Stand, and still wasted a big budget, and did horribly.
He left pretty early.
He left pretty early, but still, it happened.
So
X2 still had the same problems. Basically, 3 was all the problems that you started seeing in 2, but amplified. Okay? You had mutants, they had powers, they weren't fighting with them. This is the X-Men universe. Shit breaks. Okay, because Magneto lifts up spoiler alert guys, lifts up entire baseball stadiums and lowers them right in the middle of the White House's front garden so nobody can escape. Okay, this is the X-Men universe, which is the Marvel universe, and we're not even going to get into that because it's 20th Century Fox and Disney. Pros of this movie, now that I've said all this, okay, here's my pros. I think they did very, very well with both the past and the future iterations of the X-Men. Okay, I think this really kind of captured what people loved in the first movie. I think they finally kind of got the relationship between Magneto and Professor X in both eras. Where you had in the future that they had kind of forgiven each other of their past sins and were working together. And in the past, they haven't forgiven each other. And they still have their very dynamically different viewpoints on how to solve the problem. I especially want to compliment Jennifer Lawrence. I actually give her a lot of crap in the Hunger Games film. And it's not really because of her acting. It's because I don't like the character. I don't like the main character, Katniss Everdeen. In fact, I don't really have a whole... This is kind of funny because I did praise Catching Fire last year. Mm-hmm. But I read the book series. I don't have a whole lot of praise for that book series. It's a very depressing one. But Jennifer Lawrence, I think, is one of the best, most standout actors in this film because of what she does with Mystique. Where Rebecca Romaine Stamos was very silent for most of the time, and all they ever did was, they wanted to have those shock moments, like in the helicopter where she's capturing Robert Kelly. Mm-hmm. They wanted to have those subtle moments, and this one actually tried to put a character in front of it. And the one that they've done, Raven Darkholm, is very good.
Yeah.
And X-Men fans know Mystique is a really cool character. But the movies have not really done anything with her. The animated series did good things with them. And so I will applaud Jennifer Lawrence. If for anything, she's probably one of the most standout performances. Just because of the struggles that character has to go through, especially when she finds out about her link to the future and the past. And yes, she does find out. The other performances that I will point out, obviously, are I love, and I know everybody's going to say this, I love Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen working off of each other. It worked really well. This is comic book nerds' version of Nirvana, because these two understand these roles and where they were at in that point in the timeline, and did it really, really well. And I think that even gets put in with James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. We get the dynamics, and it works really, really well. Hugh Jackman obviously does a really great job with Wolverine. It's, and I have said, it's too bad for Hugh because there really isn't a whole lot to work with that character. He's angry a lot of the time. In fact, they even make fun of that whole concept. He's supposed to remain peaceful while he goes back in time, and he's like, well, what if I have a rocky moment? Then you need to find peace. I'm not very good at finding peace. And so I like what Hugh did with the role. The problems that I have, or or I'm not going to get into the problems just yet because you'll get into yours, but also I got to say the actor who played Richard Nixon was pretty good too. Yeah. Really good impersonation, and I wanted to know if it was no, I don't think it's the same person for Frost Nixon because I think that was
that was like Hopkins, wasn't it?
I don't know. No, it was in Frost Nixon?
Yeah. I
think it was I can never remember his name. Franklin Jello.
Okay.
And I don't think it was the same guy. So, and I might be wrong on that. So I'll point him out. He was really good. Other standout performances, there really wasn't a whole lot because I wanted to see more stuff from the other mutants, and they were kind of chewing the scenery. Like Bobby Drake was one that we knew from the previous movies, and they didn't give him a whole lot to do with. They finally let him use his ice powers. Holy crap! And we didn't even have Pyro. We had Sunspot, so he was using his fire powers. I think it's the same kid they got to play Colossus in X-Men 2. But yeah, those are my I'm trying to think of any other standout performances. The one that really... I would have Game of Thrones fans jumping down our throats. Peter Dinklage! Holy crap! Really great pick for Boulevard Trask. Because in a lot of cases, you get his... This is actually one of the turns I like about it is, like where the X-Men animated series just made Trask hate mutants, like everybody else does. Very stereotypical. Instead, Dinklage had a weird admiration for them because they were kind of helping to build his Sentinel program. But also, a lot of the scenes where he was in them, he just owned the spotlight. Even the moments where like Jennifer Lawrence is pointing a gun at him, he was kind of owning the spotlight with the impact of the moment. So, nice job, Peter Dinklage. If I were to dare say, Jennifer Lawrence did a little bit better, but that's just because she was given more scene time. Or a little bit more screen time, but bravo. Thank you very much. I love Peter Dinklage whenever he does anything. Mm-hmm. So, let's get into the cons, because people want me to get this off my chest. Go ahead, Alex.
I guess the one scene I didn't like was in the Pentagon where everything, like, slows to a stop and... What's his bucket?
Oh, you're talking when Quicksilver goes into speed mode?
Yeah, and he... Like, it was just a little goofy for me, and... Sure, this movie...
Believe it or not, that's actually how that character works. I mean, that character does a lot of weird crap.
Fair enough.
You know? But I can understand where you would have a problem with that. It looked very Matrix-y.
Yeah. And, you know, Matrix... this whole Matrix style of filmmaking is getting old.
It's one of those things that I think both Marvel and DC are going to have a problem with, because both of them have super speed superheroes.
Yeah.
Quicksilver isn't necessarily a hero. He spent a lot of time as a villain. So... But then you have on DC's end the Flash. So at that point, it really is kind of hard to describe that other than giving it from their perspective and having anything slow down. I especially like that whole concept where he's playing Pong with himself.
Yeah.
And he was putting up like really insane numbers.
So, was he in the last movie?
Quicksilver?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, that's part of the controversy here, is because they were bringing him in for Days of Future Past, but Marvel Studios also, because he's also been an Avenger in the past, they want to bring him and Scarlet Witch in for Avengers 2. So he's like the big Easter egg reveal for Captain America the Winter Soldier, spoiler alert. It's a month long, guys. But yeah, he's one of the bigger reveals, and it's two different actors. And
okay.
Yeah. It's messed up, but I think they did fairly well with Pietro, with what they had. I also love the whole concept of like kind of hinting, because in some X-Men continuity, Pietro Maximoff is the son of Magneto, and so they do that whole elevator moment going, oh yeah, my mom said she knew a man who could move metal too.
Oh, now
and then you had Michael Fassbender go, almost like he's thinking about it. That would not make sense, because I think in that continuity, his mother was basically the queen of Marvel's equivalent of Shangri-La. So I don't think that would work, but okay. So other cons that you had with it?
Maybe just, I guess maybe this might sound a little silly, but it does kind of depend on the previous film. I had no idea that was going to lead into anything. I thought it was just a spin-off or something. And I just figured, you know...
I thought it was just a reboot.
Yeah, I had no clue what that was. I just like, no thanks. So I avoided it. Now I'm going to go back and watch it.
Oh yeah, you should. It's really good.
Well, so maybe it just relies a little too much on somebody's previous knowledge of that.
Well, not only that, it doesn't rely just on First Class. It relies on you knowing everything that's happened up until that point.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, William Stryker, he was known in X-Men 2, but he was also known in X-Men Origins. Mm-hmm. So they even kind of point... Although I do find it funny that when they do the flashbacks, it's the X-Men 2 Stryker, not the Origins one. Almost like they're saying, we want to forget that little dirty little secret.
They must have featured footage from Origins.
They did not.
No, they did.
Well, they featured some, but I'm talking like all the Stryker footage is all X-Men 2 Stryker, which was a different actor. And his name escapes me, but he's really good. So other cons that you have with it?
That's really it.
Cons for me. First of all, I'm still very much of the opinion that this could have been well done with Matthew Vaughn at the helm. I think Bryan Singer brought very little to it. I think really it was the star power that helped with that, and they knew what they were doing, except for Halle Berry, who I to this day, and I don't care what comic book nerds throw at me, and flame shield up, boys and girls, she has never understood the character the very moment she has stepped into it. She has never, ever had the indication that she is Storm to me. So she's always one of those complaints that I've had. I also had some beefs with Famke Janssen. just because I think she got Jean Grey up until Phoenix continuity, and then she went, screw it, I'm not gonna look into that. So cons that I have.
Here it comes, guys. You better run for it, because here comes the comic book nerd.
Nerd rage! The part that bugs me is, like, halfway into the film, I realize that this is a gigantimous retcon for Bryan Singer. It's basically saying, can you forgive me, please? It doesn't exist. And I just... They'll forever be part of what I know. You know, there's no way you can reverse X2 and X3 from my mind, so I'm always going to know that, and therefore I'm always going to be very critical of Bryan Singer's choices, especially with this continuity. And supposedly, if he still is in charge of the X-Men, or the upcoming movie X-Men Apocalypse, which, given all the news of his supposed sex scandal accusations, I wonder if they're actually going to keep him on, or if they're gonna boot him off for better publicity. Cons overall, I don't have a whole lot with the film in general, other than I get what it's supposed to be doing. The Sentinels, I actually like. I don't know about you, Alex. I like the older Sentinels look better than the new ones, or the future ones. The ones that are supposedly, like, you know, indestructible and all. They came off to me as CG enemy, or 20th Century Fox's take on the Thor villain from the first movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? Destroyer, no. The guy who kills Thor in that one. Mm-hmm. It really just came off as that, especially when their face opens up and that's how they're firing their lasers. I did not like the premise that the Kitty Pryde thing. I didn't like in the comics either, but I'm willing to forgive that concept. I really am trying to find something that I hated. I liked Pietro as a character. I don't really like the fact that he wasn't used more than he was. Get him involved, for crying out loud. If you're going to have the super speed hero, get him freaking involved. Oh, big one I had a problem with. Why with the bone claws? Why? I guess I'm a Wolverine fan, guys. I love the adamantium claws, not the bone ones.
Well, I guess this is before he got the adamantium.
That's the way that they're trying to justify it. But if you notice, like the adamantium claws come out really fast. And with Wolverine, with Bone Claw Wolverine, they come out really slow. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, whoa. I also didn't like the fact that so many X-Men were dead. Where we only have Beast, and Havoc is alive, but like Banshee from the first movie, amongst a couple of others. There was actually one that did not make her presence in First Class, and she was one of the ones that went over to Magneto's side. So I'm wondering what happened to her. And Emma Frost did not make a return appearance. The White Queen was not there. And she's kind of a premier telepath. So it would have been cool to have her helping out Mystique or something. CG was kind of silly in a few places,
yeah,
but...
I think the worst CG part was probably when Magneto's doing something on the train. I don't know what exactly he was doing.
On the train. Where he was trying to infuse metal into the Sentinels, okay, so that he could control them.
Okay, yeah.
That was a little silly. You know, one of the things that the X-Men films, whenever Magneto's involved, he has to kind of like one-up himself. So like the first movie, I want to say his one-upping was the mutant machine in the first movie. Second one, he has to do the whole prison escape scene. And the third one, it was lifting up the bridge. This one, it was lifting up an entire baseball stadium and saying, nobody's escaping! Boom! Right in front of the White House's front lawn. That was both silly, but also it's just like, seriously, do we have to have Michael Fassbender one-up Ian McKellen? I don't think we do.
Oh, and no Stan Lee cameo.
No Stanley cameo.
I don't think he had cameos in the other X-Men films, though.
He might not have. I don't think he did. Wolverine, the Wolverine, maybe. No, I don't think he was in that one either. That may be why he's not in them.
Because he hasn't been in any of the
Because it hasn't been in any of them.
Yeah.
Plus Stan Lee's getting up in years. So I mean, the fact that he did Captain America kind of amazed me.
And Amazing Spider-Man 2. And
Well, just the way, I don't think they'd show a whole lot of him because he's sitting down in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but in Captain America, he's the security guard at the Captain America Museum.
yeah.
And they actually have him, like, when Cap goes in to steal his uniform, he hears the glass breaking, and he's freaking out, having a heart attack, and he's going, I am so fired. And at that point, you can see how frail he's getting, I love Stan Lee, but he's getting up there in years, guys. He can't do cameos forever.
Well, this is cameos when he goes.
If anything, you hope for these moments like where Legendary Pictures, or not Legendary, Lionsgate will learn from this, and with the Power Rangers reboot, we'll get a Jason David Frank cameo, and that'll be its own continuity. Hey, he petitioned for his own Green Ranger movie, so.
Right.
So, with pros and cons stated, give it a score, Alex. Where would you put this? And then also, I'm gonna put out another one, but let's give the scores.
I'm going to give a 9.
Okay, give it a 9 out of 10. Just stupendous movie for you.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna give it an 8.
All right.
It's a solid B. I think that Bryan Singer did fairly well with this job. I'm not saying that it could have. I'm not saying Bryan Singer was dependent on that, though. You had really great star power, and I think any director would have been able to utilize them properly. That's one of the things that bothers me is Matthew Vaughn is kind of responsible for bringing X-Men back, and he wasn't involved. At that point, that pissed me off a little bit. So that's why I will give it an 8 because obviously wibbly wobbly timey wimey is really hard to do, and I think they did the best they could, but there were still some problems. Here's the next thing that I want to do. So tickets cost a lot these days, Alex.
Yeah.
So the other part of the scoring process that I want to add is, what is it, like $12 for 3D? It's like $8. At least here, it's like $8 for a normal ticket and like $5 for a matinee. Either rate that pricing, or you could say, do people need to just wait to rent it, wait till it hits the dollar theater? How would you? Is it worth the $8 at least?
See it in theaters at least. If you're a huge 3D fan, maybe it's worth your while. We didn't see it in 3D, so I can't comment on that.
And truth be told,
considering this is a post 3D, I'm gonna caution against that because generally there
isn't enough CG either to justify it.
And when you make a movie for 3D, you have to shoot it with a 3D mindset. And if it's done in post, that clearly means.
But Alex, what about the Hobbit movies?
Oh, those looked awful in 3D. Okay.
But they were built for it.
Sadly, yes. So, go back and learn a few things from James Cameron.
Yeah, well, we can't really test the 3D. We didn't see it that way.
So anyway, see it if you definitely see it in theaters.
How about non-X-Men fans? Were they enjoy it?
Non-X-Men fans?
You don't know jack about X-Men. You didn't even watch the cartoons.
I watched a little bit of the cartoons.
Okay, so you have some information.
Yeah, I know a few things about X-Men.
Okay.
So, I think if you like the other movies, any of the other movies, this will probably also be worth a watch.
Okay, so my viewpoint on that is very simple. First of all, do you need to see the previous movies to enjoy this movie? Not really. You at least get something of what the characters are in this film. So don't worry too much about that. Like, do you need to go watch 6 DVDs? No, you don't. Especially X-Men Origins. None of us are recommending that you watch X-Men Origins, okay? No, you put that DVD down. No. Is it worth the $8? Absolutely. Absolutely. Go see it. That way you can at least say you saw it and your X-Men fan friends can leave you alone. X-Men fans will appreciate it, however, they'll have kind of the same problems that I did. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey is really hard to do, and this plot line actually was very easy to destroy in my opinion. And I'm not saying they did it flawlessly, but they did it. But yes, it's worth the tickets. It's worth the DVD at that point for X-Men fans. Non-X-Men fans will enjoy it because it is an action movie, and you will get at least some action out of this. Some of which is just going to boggle your mind. Especially the whole Magneto has to up himself to a whole other level. Because at the same time you have Ian McKellen doing epic. At the same time Michael Fassbender's doing epic. So it's just like, wow, we're having, across two timelines, we're having epic Magneto. So I think that kind of wraps up our viewpoint for X-Men Days of Future Past. Hopefully people aren't too mad at me for my Bryan Singer hatred and all that stuff, because right now I'll go see X-Men Apocalypse to see if he pulls it out. I just don't given all the scandals around him right now, unless he comes out exonerated and quick, I don't think he's going to be part of that movie. He may be contracted for it now, but with these scandals, I can see his studio trying to weasel their way out of it. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and spoil the next movie, because we're both doing very deep sighs. We're going into the first of the double hitter from Michael Bay this year. Next, we're actually going to be going a while without a vlog, and the next movie is going to be Transformers: Age of Extinction. So at this point, we are looking forward to this and yet another film from Michael Bay. I think that's actually, no, that's not the next one, but that's coming. It's going to be in September, I think.
August.
August. Is Turtles in August?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least we can cleanse the palate with Guardians of the Galaxy before then. So in the meantime, hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Go see the movie. You'll get some enjoyment out of it. But until then, you will probably not see us until Transformers.
Except for LPs.
Except for LPs. And like we said in the what's coming up next, we've got lots coming, guys.
Lots. So stay tuned, guys.
Exactly.
More great content to come on both our channels, and you're going to enjoy everything.
Literally starting June 1st. So already we got lots coming. Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, we are Drak and Shadow, and this has been our vlog for X-Men Days of Future Past.